Hey there, Bible nerds! Welcome to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye, where we dive into the Bible chapter by chapter. If you're watching this on YouTube, then you'll see that my view is a little bit different. Same corner of my room, but I moved the camera a little bit. I just wanted to highlight my wall. um anyways, so I'm so excited to kick off our journey through the book of Exodus. In this premiere episode, we're covering Exodus chapters 1 through 5, a whirlwind of drama and divine action. Think of it as the origin story of Moses. We've got an oppressive Pharaoh, which is the exact opposite of the Pharaoh that Joseph had served. And then, we have some quick thinking midwives, a baby in a basket, a runaway prince turned shepherd, a bush that talks, and a showdown with the mightiest king on earth. So buckle up. By the end of this episode, you will laugh, maybe cry just a little, and definitely be on the edge of your seat for what comes next. So grab your drink. I have my coconut water, and take a seat, get comfy, and let's get into it. All right, chapter 1. New Pharaoh, new problems. So our story opens in Egypt long after Joseph and his generation have passed away. It's been like maybe centuries. So the Israelites, aka the descendants of Jacob, have been fruitful and multiplied like nobody's business. The land is practically learning. The land is practically teeming with these Hebrews. And then enter a new Pharaoh on the throne, a king who did not know Joseph and certainly doesn't care about honoring any old arrangements. This new Pharaoh takes one look at the booming Israelite population and breaks into a cold sweat. Maybe he's thinking, there are so many of them. What if they turn against us? Picture him biting his nails under his royal headdress. Like, what if they turn against us? So in a paranoid panic, Pharaoh decides to clamp down hard. His brilliant idea, you want to guess? It's slavery. So before you know it, the Israelites are dragged into backbreaking labor. They're forced to build entire cities, Pithom and Ramses, as supply centers for Pharaoh's kingdom. Taskmasters crack whips, and life turns bitter with endless, bricks and mortar. But here's a twist. The more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. It's as if the Hebrews thrive under pressure. So the Pharaoh's worst nightmare, pretty much. So the Egyptians grow to dread these resilient people of Israel. Pharaoh, however, is not giving up on the population control. It's hard, hard labor. If hard labor won't break the Israelites, he is ready to try something more sinister. So he summons 2 Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, and gives them a horrifying order, saying, when you help Hebrew women give birth, if it's a boy, kill him. If it's a girl, let her live. And yes, you heard that right. The king of Egypt tells midwives, professional baby helpers, to kill babies. You can almost hear the stunned silence and pounding like hearts of Shiphrah and Puah. Like, these 2 women may be ordinary, but in this moment, they become absolutely heroic. The text from the Bible says, the midwives feared God. They did not do as the king commanded, but let the boys live. So they quietly defy Pharaoh's evil decree. Civil disobedience, Bronze Age style. So soon Pharaoh notices that Hebrew baby boys are still giggling in their mother's arms. So he hauls in Shiphrah and Puah for questioning. Like, why have you done this and allowed the boys to live? He growls. So, cue the midwives who've prepared their perfect cover story with a side of cheekiness, maybe. And they say, "Oh dear Pharaoh, these Hebrew women are just so vigorous. They give birth before we even arrive." In other words, oops, the baby's popped out too fast. What's a midwife to do? Huh? So it's a hilarious, bold excuse, basically painting the Hebrew mamas as super women who don't need midwives at all. And you know what? Pharaoh buys it. Or at least he's got nothing to prove otherwise. And the midwives' risky bluff works. So thanks to these gutsy women, countless infant boys are saved. God is pleased with Shiphrah and Puah's courage. In fact, it says God dealt well with them and gave them families of their own as a reward. Shiphrah and Puah exit the story as unsung heroes, having outwitted the most powerful men on earth with nothing but their faith and quick wits. Pharaoh, however, is beyond frustrated. Plan A of slavery failed. Plan B, secret infanticide, failed. So he moves to Plan C, which is not subtle at all. So he makes a public decree to all Egyptians. Every Hebrew boy that is born must be thrown into the Nile River, but let every girl live. So it's official government policy now, essentially a genocide order against baby boys. The Nile River, lifeblood of Egypt, is about to be turned into a death trap for the Hebrews. It's a dark, terrifying time. I cannot even imagine how scary that must have been for moms, with baby boys. So it's a dark, terrifying time, for sure. Very, very, very terrifying time. So chapter 1 closes in this somber note. An empire bent on crushing God's people, and a question hanging in the air like, will God do something to help? This chapter hits hard with themes of oppression and courage. And on one hand, we see evil, a Pharaoh who abuses power and shows utter disregard for life. But on the other hand, we see two ordinary women, Shiphrah and Puah, stands up for what's right. Their civil disobedience was fueled by a reverence for God and the sanctity of life. How inspiring is that? It reminds us that doing the right thing often means fearing God over fearing human authorities. These midwives risked their lives to save others, and in the end, God honored them. So what's the takeaway for us? Sometimes the moral choice might be risky or counter-cultural, but God sees our integrity, and even in bleak times, God can raise up like the unlikest heroes, to humble midwives to defy injustice. It's a powerful start to Exodus when evil seems to prevail. Watch how God works through brave individuals who trust Him. Alright, fun fact corner. The name Shiphrah actually pops up in the ancient Egyptian document in a papyrus from around 1740 BC, which lists household slaves in Egypt. One of the female servants is named Shiphrah. Now, we can't know if she's the Shiphrah from Exodus, but it's super cool that this biblical name is found in Egyptian records. It shows that Hebrew people and names were present in Egypt, just as Exodus describes. Also, it's noteworthy that Exodus bothered to name Shiphrah and Puah, giving honor to these women when they didn't even name the Pharaoh. Anyways, so in a book full of big shot leaders, the first savior are two brave midwives. That's a little historical Easter egg and a tribute rolled into one. That is it for chapter 1. All right, chapter 2, a baby in a basket and a new life in Midian. So, despite Pharaoh's decree, hope sneaks into our story in the form of one special baby. Chapter 2 introduces a Hebrew couple from the tribe of Levi. They have a baby boy, and this mother just knows there's something extraordinary about her child. He is described as a fine baby, healthy and beautiful. And for 3 months, she manages to hide the infant from Egyptian eyes. Imagine the lens muffling his cries, keeping him indoors. The tension in that household must have been so intense and so scary. I cannot even imagine. But as the baby boy grows louder and wigglier, mom realizes she cannot conceal him forever. So she comes up with a heart wrenching plan. She makes a tiny waterproof basket, basically a mini ark made of papyrus reeds sealed with tar and pitch. With a prayer in her heart, she places her precious 3-month-old baby into this basket and gently sets it afloat on the Nile River among the reeds. Can you picture it? I cannot. I don't even want to. It's gonna break my heart. And I've watched The Prince of Egypt, and as when I was young, and also as a mom, and that broke my heart. I cannot. Um. Anyways, so this is desperate motherhood, in action, using the Nile, the very Nile that was meant to drown him as a hope of saving him. So the big sister, who was actually not yet named at this point in this chapter, but her name is Miriam, is tasked to watch from a distance, keeping those sharp young eyes on the floating basket as it wobbles down the riverbank. Now enter Pharaoh's daughter. And yes, an Egyptian princess comes down to the Nile to bathe. I don't know why, since that is where they're drowning all the babies, but she went down the river to take a bath, and she happens to spot this curious basket among the reeds. She sends one of her mates to fetch it. They open the basket, and lo and behold, the baby is crying. The prince's heart melts on the spot. This must be one of the Hebrew children, she says, recognizing the situation. Now she, think about this. Her dad is the guy ordering these babies to be killed. Yet, here she is, feeling compassion for this little Hebrew bundle. She's essentially deciding to defy her father, the Pharaoh, in her own way. So talk about irony. Salvation for the Hebrews is about to come from inside the palace. God is very, very hilarious. It's funny. So the big sister, Miriam, who's been stealthily watching nearby, seizes the moment. She bravely approaches the princess and offers a helpful suggestion, saying, "Excuse me, Your Highness, shall I go and get you a Hebrew nurse to breastfeed the child for you?" The princess, probably busy, going at the baby, says, "Yes, please," and off she goes, straight home to fetch the baby's own mother. Like, can we appreciate this stroke of genius? Not only is the baby saved, but his mother gets to continue raising him, or at least, through infancy, and get paid for it on top of that. So, sure enough, Pharaoh's daughter hires the Hebrew woman to nurse and care for the child until he is older. So, in a beautiful twist, this mama gets her son back under royal protection. I imagine her singing, Hebrew lullabies to him at night, knowing each day is a gift of grace. And when the baby grows older, perhaps around toddler age, he is brought back to Pharaoh's daughter, and he becomes her son by adoption. She gives him an Egyptian name, Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." So the name Moses sounds like the Hebrew for draw out, actually. But here our Moses begins life as a prince of Egypt. Prince of Egypt, if you've seen the movie. It's pretty close, There's some inaccuracies and some missing parts, but I do like that movie. So picture him growing up in the royal courts, educated, well dressed, maybe riding chariots through palace halls. Well, knowing deep down he's a Hebrew. You can sense an identity crisis brewing. And then fast forward a couple of decades, Moses is now a young man. Though raised Egyptian, he has a heart for his people's suffering. Um, One day he goes out to observe the forced labor and he sees an Egyptian taskmaster beating a Hebrew slave mercilessly. Moses' sense of justice explodes. He looks around, sees no one watching, and jumps into the fray. He strikes the Egyptian and kills him, and then quickly hides the body in the sand. So we have ourselves a vigilante moment here. Moses delivers some instant justice, but it's a rash act of violence for sure. He probably thought he got away with it too. But the very next day, Moses goes out again and this time finds two Hebrew men fighting each other. So, face down, like, come on now. So he steps in, trying to break it up, saying, "Hey, why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew?" So instead of thanking him, the aggressor barks back, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed that Egyptian?" So, Moses' blood runs cold, probably, and, because his deadly secret is out. People know. Surely this thing is known. He realizes in panic. Indeed, it doesn't take long for Pharaoh to hear rumors of Moses killing an Egyptian. And Pharaoh is livid. His adopted grandson siding with the Hebrews and committing murder. Pharaoh issues a warrant for Moses' arrest and execution. I think that's a bit too much for your own grandson, but, I guess that was normal back in the day. Alright. So Moses does the only thing he can, which is run. He flees Egypt to save his life. I'm heading east to the land of Midian. So goodbye, fancy palace. Hello, desert wasteland. After a long trek, Moses arrives exhausted at a well in Midian, but his hero instinct still intact. At this well, he encounters 7 sisters, daughters of a local priest named Ruel, trying to water their flock. Some bully shepherds come and chase the girls away. Now very gentlemanly, but Moses steps up. In a scene straight out of an action movie, he defends the sisters and even helps draw water for their sheep. Like, who knew? Moses went from delivering justice in Egypt to delivering H2O in Midian. The sisters go home to their father Ruel, also known as Jethro, later on, and excitedly tell him about the Egyptian stranger who rescued them. Ruel is like, "What? An Egyptian saved you? And you left him out there? Go invite him for dinner." So, classic Near Eastern hospitality. Moses invited to stay for a meal, which turns into staying for good. In time, Moses settles down in Midian, working for Ruel, or Jethro, as a shepherd. He even marries one of those 7 sisters, Zipporah, and they start a family. Moses names his first son Gershom, saying, "I have been an alien residing in a foreign land." The name Gershom sounds like the Hebrew word for foreigner, reflecting Moses' feeling of being a stranger now. So there's Moses, a former prince, now a humble shepherd with a wife, a kid, and a new life far from Egypt. Like, who would have thought? So back in Egypt, meanwhile, the life trudges on. The Pharaoh who wanted Moses dead eventually dies himself, Good news for Moses, I suppose, but bad news for everyone hoping oppression would die with that Pharaoh. Spoiler, it didn't. The Israelites are still enslaved, still broken under cruel labor. So, chapter 2 ends on a poignant note. The Israelites groaned under their slavery and cried out. Their cry for help rose up to God. God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant. God looked upon the Israelites and took notice of them. In other words, God sees their misery and is about to act. A rescue plan is about to unfold, and guess who's going to be right at the center of it? Our guy, Moses, the runaway prince turned shepherd. So stay tuned for that. So in chapter 2, we witness God's providence at work in surprising ways. So many women, Moses' mother, his sister, Pharaoh's daughter, play crucial roles in saving the future deliverer. It's as if God said, Pharaoh, you want to drown the boys? I'll use a bunch of brave women to outsmart you. So the Nile meant for death became the very means of Moses' salvation. There's a beautiful irony and hope even when evil plots, surrounds us. God can turn the situation upside down for good. Also, think about Moses' journey. He grows up privileged yet has a heart for the oppressed. Yes, he took justice into his own hands. Not the best move, and it drove him into exile. But in Midian, Moses' character is refined. He experiences humility from prince to shepherd and starts a family. Sometimes God prepares us in wilderness seasons. Moses needed years away from Egypt to shed his pride and learn patience. Nothing like herding sheep to teach you that. By the end of chapter 2, God hasn't spoken a word yet. But we see his fingerprints. Moses was plucked from the water for a purpose. So if you are in a waiting period or feeling like a stranger in strange land, remember Moses. Just remember him. God might be preparing you for something greater, even if you can't see it yet. All right, fun fact corner. Did you notice the name Moses is actually Egyptian? Pharaoh's daughter named him after all. In Egyptian, Mose, M-O-S-E, as in Thutmose or Ramses, means born of or son. For example, Ramses means born of Ra, the sun god. Moses' name likely came from that root. Of course, the Bible cleverly links it to that Hebrew verb masha, meaning to draw out, since she drew him out of the water. But the Egyptian flavor doesn't stop there. Exodus is full of Egyptian loan words. The basket Moses was placed in is called teva, which is derived from the Egyptian word for a papyrus boat. The word for the Nile River in the story is actually the Egyptian term for great river, not the usual Hebrew word. So these little linguistic details are like historical fingerprints, showing what the story is deeply rooted in the Egypt context. It's a neat confirmation that whoever wrote Exodus knew their Egyptian stuff, like Moses himself, raised in Pharaoh's court and fluent in both worlds. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, almost forgot this. Is it for chapter 2? All right, on to chapter 3, the call from the burning bush. Meanwhile, in Midian, Moses is living in the quiet life of a shepherd. Chapter 3 opens with Moses tending the flock of his father-in-law. By now, Moses is about 80 years old. So talk about a late bloomer for destiny. On an ordinary day, he leads the sheep far into the wilderness and comes to Mount Horeb, known as the Mount of God. And spoiler, Mount Horeb is also called Mount Sinai. Yep, that Mount Sinai. But we're not there yet in the story. I just want to give a little spoiler. Anyway, so suddenly something extraordinary catches his eye. A nearby bush is on fire, but it's not burning up. The flames are blazing, yet the leaves aren't, charred. The branches aren't consumed. It's fire that doesn't destroy. Moses does a double take and, being the curious fellow he is, says to himself, I must turn aside and see this strange sight, why the bush isn't burning up. So shepherd's instincts make sure this isn't a brush fire that could hurt the flock, but also, what on earth is this? Like that. So as Moses approaches, a voice calls out from the bush, Moses, Moses. So Moses freezes and answers, Here I am. So it's the voice of God coming from the flames. God immediately warns him, Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place you are standing is holy ground. So Moses slips off his sandals quickly. Imagine his hands trembling. 1 minute you're herding sheep, the next you're talking to a miraculous flame. Then God introduces himself. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this, Moses hides his face, afraid to look at God. It's a moment of sheer awe. The God of his ancestors, the very one his people have cried out to, is here. In a scrubby bush on a mountainside, speaking to him. And God has a mission. He tells Moses, I have surely seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cry on account of their taskmasters. I know their suffering, and I have come down to deliver them from the Egyptians. So, goosebumps. God basically says, I've seen the injustice. I'm going to act now. So he promises to bring the Israelites out of Egypt to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. The land of Canaan and all those peoples, the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, lots of ites. This is the fulfillment of the ancient promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Moses is probably nodding in relieved agreement, like, yes, Lord, save your people, until God drops the bombshell. So come, I will send you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Like, hold on, what? Like, Moses' jaw hits the floor. Did he hear that right? Like, him go back to Pharaoh, the very place he fled, where he's a wanted man, and lead an entire nation out of slavery. That's huge. So Moses stammers, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? So in other words, like, me? Are you sure you've got the right guy? I'm just a shepherd, also a former fugitive, definitely not a leader or hero. Moses' self-doubt is on full display. So God responds with the ultimate assurance. I will be with you. That should be enough, right? But God also gives Moses a sign. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain, which is talking about Mount Horeb. Um, Interesting. The sign will come after obedience, not before. So, faith required. Moses is still uneasy. He thinks of another concern. Okay, suppose I go to the Israelites and say, "The God of your ancestors sent me." They might ask, "What's his name?" What do I tell them? So, up to now, the Israelites know God as the God of our fathers. But Moses senses they'll want a specific name or proof of this encounter. Then God reveals something revolutionary. He says to Moses, I just combined Moses and Joseph. So he says to Moses, "I am who I am. Tell the Israelites, I am has sent me to you." This is huge. I am in Hebrew, Yahweh is Yahweh, related to be, is a divine name. So God is essentially saying, I am the self-existent one, the source of all being, the God who simply is. And furthermore, God says, tell them the Lord, or Yahweh, the God of your fathers, has sent me. This is my name forever. From now on, the name Yahweh will be God's covenant name with Israel. Our English Bibles often render it as Lord in all caps. So if you're reading the Bible and when the Lord is spelled in all caps, that's just it saying Yahweh. So that is Yahweh. So Bible nerd note, whenever, like I said, whenever you see the Lord, Lord in caps, that is Yahweh in Hebrew. Imagine Moses hearing this sacred name from God himself. What a holy moment. God isn't done with instruction, though. He essentially lays out the whole game plan for Moses. Gather the elders of Israel. Tell them I've appeared to you and I am going to rescue them and bring them to Canaan, a land flowing with milk and honey. God assures Moses, the elders will listen to you. Then you all will go to the king of Egypt and say, the Lord, in all caps, the God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go 3 days into the wilderness to sacrifice to our God. That's the polite initial request, a 3-day religious retreat. We'll see Pharaoh's response soon enough. So God forewarns Moses, but I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless compelled by a mighty hand. So in short, Pharaoh is going to be stubborn. So God promises, I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all my wonders. After that, he will let you go. There's the foreshadowing of the famous plagues and miracles to come. And finally, God adds a remarkable detail. I will make the Egyptian favorably disposed toward this people, so that when you leave, you won't go empty-handed. Every Israelite woman will ask her Egyptian neighbor for silver, gold, and clothes, and you will plunder the Egyptians. Not only is God going to liberate them, he's going to ensure that they get reparations on the way out. It's a dramatic promise of both deliverance and justice. That was a lot. Take a deep breath. This is one epic encounter. Moses started the day caring for the sheep. He's ending it with a personal commission from Almighty God. Chapter 3 closes with Moses probably still wide-eyed and mouth open, holding his sandals in his hand, realizing his life decision or no, his life direction just did a 180. Ready or not, Moses has been called into God's service. This chapter is all about calling and revelation. Moses experiences God's holiness, take off your sandal, a sign of respect, and recognizing God's purity, and then God's compassion. He has seen his people's misery and acting to save them. It's a beautiful balance. God is transcendent, burning bush that isn't consumed. Like, what a symbol of pure, powerful line. Oh, did I say line? Powerful life. And yet imminent, deeply concerned about human suffering. Moses' reaction is so very relatable. Like, who am I? He feels inadequate, but God's answer is a key. I will be with you. When God calls us to a daunting task, his presence is the game changer. It's not about our ability, but his. Also consider the name, God gives. I am who I am. This reveals God as eternal, self-sufficient, and faithful. He is being itself the same God of Abraham's time and Moses' time and forever. For the Israelites in despair, knowing Yahweh, meaning he is and he will be with them, is hugely comforting. Like, how about us? The same I am is with us through thick and thin. God sometimes calls us out of comfort, out of our comfort zone. Like Moses, out of Midian to serve others. But he always goes with us. If you're ever feeling unqualified to do what's right or what God puts on your heart, remember God's promise. I will be with you. That was enough for Moses. And it's enough for us too. There's no way that what you're going through is, well, I don't know, but whatever I'm going through could not be as worse as or could not be as big as Moses. So he did it. I can do it. Everybody can do it. Whatever it is. All right, so I started the rambling there. But so fun fact corner. Let's geek out on the divine name Yahweh. In Hebrew, I am is Eye, and he is third person form would be Yahweh. They share the same root of the verb to be. So when God says, I am who I am, he's essentially revealing the meaning behind his name Yahweh, the one who exists by himself eternally. In Jewish tradition, this name was considered so holy that they wouldn't even pronounce it aloud. Like Yahweh. It's like breathing. I saw this one video on I think it was on TikTok or somewhere. It's like breathing, like that. So you wouldn't even say it out loud. But instead of saying it out aloud, they'd say Adonai, which also means Lord, when reading scripture. That's why in many Bibles you see Lord in all caps. It's like a placeholder for Yahweh. Another tidbit. Mount Horeb, where this happened, is traditionally identified as Mount Sinai in the Sinai Peninsula. There's even a monastery which is called St. Catherine's at one traditional site of the burning bush. Whether that's the exact spot or not, no one knows, but how neat it is, that people still remember this event thousands of years later. God's instruction of I am here will echo throughout the Bible. Even Jesus uses I am statements. It all starts with this fiery conversation with Moses. Truly one of the most famous moments in scripture. Very powerful, overwhelming for sure. All right, that's it for chapter 3. All right, chapter 4. Miracles, excuses, and a bloody rescue. We continue right where we left off. Moses is at the burning bush receiving his mission. Now, Moses has heard God's plan, but he is still not exactly brimming with confidence. Chapter 4 begins with Moses coming up with another concern, saying, "But what if they do not believe me or listen to me? What if they say, 'The Lord did not appear to you'?" Moses anticipates the Israelites, might be skeptical of his burning bush chat with God. Like, can you blame them? Like, it's a wild story. If somebody says something about that now in this current, day and age, I don't think anybody would believe it. So God graciously provides Moses with some miraculous proof to authenticate his calling. So time for a mini magic show, except it's real. Divine power on display. So sign 1, the staff and the snake. God asks, "What's that in your hand?" Moses, probably gripping his shepherd's staff, white knuckles, says, my staff. God says, "Throw it on the ground." Moses obeys, and boom, the staff transforms into a snake. Moses jumps back in alarm. I imagine him yelling because, like his staff turned into a snake. Even a future hero can be, snake phobic. Then God says, "Reach out and take it by the tail." Picking up a snake by the tail is a trust exercise if there ever was one. Moses gingerly grabs the snake's tail and instantly it turns back into a staff in his head. Like, ta-da! God explains this is so the people will believe. The Lord, the God of their father, has appeared to you. Then, sign 2, leper's hand. So God isn't done. There's one more. "Now put your hand inside your cloak," he says. So Moses slips his hand into his robe. "Now pull it out." Moses does as his, hand is. And his hand is leprous, white as snow, infected with a skin disease. Moses' eyes go wide, like, "Put it back in," God says. So Moses puts his hand back under his cloak, heart pounding. "Now take it out again." He pulls it out and it's healed back to normal. Another miracle showing God's power to inflict and heal in an instant. That one was like a personal object lesson for Moses as well. And then sign 3, water to blood. God then says it effectively. If they don't believe those 2 signs, here's a third. "Take some water from the Nile and pour it on the ground, and it will turn into blood on the dry land." Yeah, turning water to blood, literally. That's a preview of a big plague to come. Moses hasn't performed this one yet, but God's letting him know he's armed with serious wonders. Now, after seeing a staff turn into a snake and his own hand go zombie and back, you think Moses would be ready to go, but not our Moses. He digs in with another hesitation, saying, "Oh Lord, I have never been eloquent. I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." Basically, God, I'm a terrible public speaker. I am too. And then he says, "I trip over my words. My tongue doesn't cooperate." Something Moses might have had a speech impediment or simply lacked the polished language after years in the desert. Either way, he's saying, you've got the wrong guy. Can't deliver motivational speeches to Israelites or go toe to toe with Pharaoh. So God responds with a bit of righteous sass. Who gave human beings their mouths? Who make them deaf or mute? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and teach you what to say. In other words, I'm literally the creator of tongues, Moses. I can handle your little stage fright. Trust me, I'll be your speech coach. This should settle it, right? But Moses still isn't convinced. Finally, he just blurts out what really is, on his heart. Oh Lord, please send somebody else. So there it is. Moses just plain doesn't want the job. He's essentially saying, pick somebody, anybody, but not me. So maybe he did not have the confidence. He was definitely scared and overwhelmed. It's just too much. This is a big, mission. At this, the text says the anger of the Lord burned against Moses. Like, making God angry during a direct conversation. Not great. But even in anger, God provides a concession. What about your brother, Aaron the Levite? I know he can speak well. In fact, he's already on his way to meet you. He'll be happy to see you. You shall speak to him and put words in his mouth. I will help both of you speak. He will serve as your mouth and you will serve as God to him. So basically, fine. If you won't be the spokesman, your older brother Aaron will do the talking. God appoints Aaron as Moses' spokesperson, while Moses will still be the leader receiving God's instructions. So teamwork makes the dream work. God finally says, and take this staff in your hand so you can perform the signs with it. The staff, once just a shepherd's stool, is now the staff of God's power. Conversation over. Moses accepts at last, probably with a sigh. He travels back to Jethro and politely asks permission to return to Egypt to check on his people. Jethro gives his blessing. Go in peace, he says. Moses packs up his wife Zipporah and their sons, sets them on a donkey, and heads for Egypt with the staff in his hand. God gives Moses a final heads up on the journey. By the way, when you do all those wonders in front of Pharaoh, I will harden his heart so that he won't let the people go. This kind of sounds counterintuitive, counterproductive, everything counter. But God, in predicting Pharaoh's stubbornness, which he'll use to multiply the miraculous signs, a longer story for another day. God also tells Moses to deliver a message to Pharaoh. Thus says the Lord, Israel is my firstborn son. I told you to let my son go so he may serve me. Since you have refused, I will kill your firstborn son. Like, that escalated. This is a foreshadowing of the 10th plague, the death of Egypt's firstborn. Spoiler alert. So if Pharaoh remains obstinate, that's what's going to happen. God is basically saying, mess with my child and you're messing with me. I will mess with your child too. But anyway, so now as Moses is traveling, we hit one of the strangest little episode in the Bible. So buckle up in the bizarre twist. At a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses. Or his son. The text is a bit unclear on that. And was about to kill him. Kill Moses, the newly commissioned prophet. It seems God's wrath flared because Moses' household hadn't fulfilled the covenant sign of circumcision on his son. Perhaps Moses neglected to circumcise his boy, which was commanded for Abraham's descendants. In any case, God is struck down in anger. But Zipporah springs into action. This woman grabs a flint knife, performs an impromptu circumcision on their son right there. Like, talk about plot twist during the family road trip, and she touches Moses' feet with the foreskin, saying in an exasperated tone, "Truly, you are a bridegroom of blood to me." Because of this act, God's anger turns away and Moses' life is spared. Like, Zipporah basically saved Moses by this quick and bloody obedience. The phrase bridegroom of blood likely refers to the blood of the circumcision, now rebinding Moses to his family and covenant. But honestly, it's a weird, mysterious scene. Moses can't lead God's people if he's not even obedient in his own household. God was ensuring Moses got his house in order, literally, before the mission. Christ is resolved, but it was very awkward. Zipporah likely gave Moses the look that said, "Don't you ever put our family in danger like that again. Ever." After that drama, Moses continues on, and guess who shows up? Aaron. God had told Aaron to go meet Moses in the wilderness, and they reunite at the mountain of God, probably Horeb. It's a heartwarming reunion. Two brothers embracing after 40 years apart. Moses fills Aaron in on everything. God's words, the plan, the signs he can perform. Aaron likely both shocked and excited. His younger brother is chosen by God, and Aaron gets to help. Together, they travel to Egypt and soon assemble all the elders of Israel. Aaron does the talking as arranged. He tells the people that God revealed to Moses, and Moses performs the signs. Perhaps the staff snake trick, the leper's hand in front of everyone, and the result, belief. They believed. So the Israelite elders and people are convinced that yes, God has seen their affliction. So Moses and Aaron aren't seen as crazy. They're seen as messengers of hope. The chapter ends on this uplifting note. The people believed, and when they heard that the Lord has observed their misery and seen their suffering, they bowed down and worship. Their faith and worship rising from the slaves of Egypt as they dare to hope that freedom is near. Moses must have felt a surge, actually, of encouragement. The first step of the mission is a success, at least with his own people. And then next up, face the Pharaoh. Whew. That was a lot. All right, let's go ahead and do our fun fact corner. So let's talk about the strange phrase bridegroom of blood. So this is one of the most curious one-liner in the Bible, appearing only in Exodus 4 verse 25 to 26. Zipporah uses it after circumcising their son to save Moses. Scholars have debated its meaning for ages. In the ancient Near East, blood covenant were a big deal. A circumcision was the sign of God's covenant with Abraham's family. So by calling Moses a bridegroom of blood, Zipporah might be saying, now you are rejoined to me and our family through this blood rite. It's as if the act of circumcision re-cemented Moses' role as her husband under God's covenant. Another theory is that she's referring to their son being covered by the covenant through the blood, securing Moses' bridegroom or husband's status by not letting God kill him. It's a bit obscure, but certainly memorable for sure. On a lighter note, so did you realize Moses basically tried 5 times to decline God's mission? He said, "Who am I? Like, what's your name? What if they don't believe me? I am not a good speaker." And finally, "Please send someone else." So that's 5 excuses. Yeah, Moses ends up going anyway. So don't feel too bad if you've ever been reluctant when you sense God nudging you. Moses was too, and he turned out all right. Okay, that's it for chapter 4. All right, so 4 minutes. This took longer than I thought it would. Okay, chapter 5, confrontation in Egypt. No straw, more bricks. Now the real showdown begins. In chapter 5, Moses and Aaron take the bold step of approaching Pharaoh himself. Imagine these two Hebrew men, heart pounding but resolved, standing in the grandeur of Pharaoh's court. You see the columns, the big ones, the servants all around, the Pharaoh on his throne. This is likely a new Pharaoh since the earlier one died, but he's just as tough. They deliver God's message verbatim. Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go so that they may celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness. This is the famous demand. Let my people go. Moses addresses God by his name, Yahweh, rendered as the Lord, identifying him as the God of Israel. Essentially, our God is ordering that you grant his people a 3-day leave to go worship him in a desert. Pharaoh's response, a scoff and a sneer. Who is the Lord that I should heed him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go. So he's basically saying, Yahweh, never heard of him. Why should I obey some god of slaves? Nope, not happening. To Pharaoh, he himself is considered a god on earth. The only lords he knows are the Egyptian gods. So this is the idea of the Hebrew deity bossing him around is frankly laughable to him. You can almost see Moses and Aaron glance at each other like, all right, we expected this. They try again, a little bit more politely. The Lord of the Hebrews have revealed himself to us. Please let us go 3 days journey to sacrifice to the Lord our God, or he may strike us with pestilence or sword. They're warning Pharaoh that bad things could happen if he refuses. Basically saying, it won't end well, sir, but Pharaoh is unmoved. Oh, need to drink a little bit. I'm thirsty. I've been talking for 57 minutes. Alright, so he stops. Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their work? Get back to your labor. He then mutters about the Hebrews. Look how numerous they are. And you're stopping them from working? So in Pharaoh's view, religion is a wasteful distraction for his slave workforce. Then Pharaoh implements a punitive countermeasure. The same day, he issues an order to the Egyptian taskmasters and Hebrew foremen. No more providing straw for the brick making. Let the people go and gather straw for themselves. But, require the same number of brick as before. No reduction in the quota. They are lazy, and that's why they're asking to go sacrifice to their God. So make the work harder. Keep them busy. Then they'll stop paying attention to these lies. So, in ancient brick making, straw was a key ingredient. It helped bind the clay, making bricks strong. Pharaoh basically overnight removes a critical resource but demands the same output. This is cruel and impossible, and he knows it. He's punishing the people for even entertaining thoughts of freedom. The Egyptian relays this order to the Israelites. No straw provided. Go get it yourselves wherever you can, but you must produce the same number of bricks. So now the Israelites who were already overworked have to scavenge all over Egypt for stubble and straw. They scurry into the fields, gathering whatever bits they can find to mix into clay. Despite their frantic efforts, they just can't meet the old quotas. The brickyard starts falling behind. The Egyptian taskmasters respond by beating the Hebrew foremen who were in charge of the work crews. They shout, "Why haven't you made the required number of brick yesterday and today as before?" The foremen, are in agony. They're being whipped for something beyond their control. Desperate, these Hebrew foremen go directly to Pharaoh to appeal. They cry, "Why are you treating your servants this way? No straw is given to us, yet we're told to make bricks. We, your servants, are being beaten but the fault is with your own people for not providing straw." It's a reasonable plea. And this is unfair, Pharaoh. Pharaoh's answer is basically, "Too bad, too sad. You are lazy. That's why you keep saying, 'Let us go sacrifice to the Lord.' Now get back to work. No straw will be given to you, but you must still deliver the same number of bricks." Pharaoh is doubling down. To him, the suffering of the Hebrews is a big shrug. Maybe it even pleases him to crush their spirits. The Hebrew foremen leave that meeting in despair. They realize they're in deep trouble with no relief inside. On the way out, they happen to cross their paths with Moses and Aaron, who have been waiting to hear how things went. The foremen unleash their anger on Moses and Aaron. "The Lord look upon you and judge you. You have made us stink in the eyes of Pharaoh and his officials, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us." So that's a very bitter accusation. In essence, thanks a lot, guys. You've ruined everything. Pharaoh hates us even more now and is practically killing us with this workload, and it's your fault. So you can feel Moses' heart sink. His attempt to free the people not only failed, it backfired spectacularly. The very people he came to help are now cursing him. "God are the songs of God has seen our misery," replaced with, "Curse you, Moses." So what does Moses do? He turns to God in raw honesty, which is the best thing to do, really. Moses prays, more like complains, really, to the Lord. "Oh Lord, why have you mistreated this people? Why did you ever send me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble upon this people, and you have done nothing at all to deliver your people." Talk about an honest prayer. Moses is basically saying, "God, this went horribly. You haven't rescued anyone. It's worse now. What gives?" He's confused and discouraged. I would be too, he's only human. It feels like, failure. Chapter 5 ends right there. With Moses' anguished questions hanging in the air. Why, Lord? But little does Moses know, God is about to answer him in a big way. So stay tuned for the next episode. But for now, episode 1 ends on this dramatic tension. Pharaoh is unmoved and cruel. The Israelites are in deeper despair, and Moses himself is questioning the mission. Yeah. Alright, so fun fact corner. The whole making bricks without straw ordeal isn't just as, it's not just an old tale. There's actual evidence of this kind of situation in ancient Egypt. Archaeologists have found ancient Egyptian records complaining about exactly this, actually. In one document, which was a papyrus Anastasi, an officer gripes that there are no men to make bricks and no straw in the district. It highlights how crucial straw was for brick making and how production stalled without it. In fact, paintings in Egyptian tombs depict Semitic slaves making bricks, mixing mud and straw, molding bricks, and with taskmasters overseeing. There's even evidence of varying brick quality. Some bricks with straw, some without, at sites that could correspond to the Israelite labor. The phrase "brick without straw" became idiomatic for doing a task with inadequate resources. So Exodus 5 isn't just a dramatic story, it reflects genuine labor practices of the time. How amazing that a 3,000-year-old papyrus corroborates the misery described in the Bible. For all the Bible nerds who love when history and scripture line up, this is a satisfying example for sure. It was for me. So what a ride, right? So by the end of chapter 5, Moses is discouraged. The Israelites are in deep trouble, and Pharaoh is more defiant than ever. It feels like one step forward, 2 steps back. The stage is set for a dramatic confrontation because, trust us, God is not done. In fact, at the start of chapter 6, God is going to respond to Moses. His why with some of the most empowering words of assurance. The tension gonna be higher. Will Moses find the faith to continue? Will Pharaoh's heart soften or harden future? Anyway, so thank you so much for listening, my fellow Bible nerds. I hope you enjoyed Exodus 1 of Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye. I know we covered a lot. It was a lot. It's been like 1 hour and 5 minutes. But what a foundation we have laid. We met Moses from birth to burning bush and saw that even heroes have doubts. We got some laughs from midwives outsmarting Pharaoh and Moses' snake surprise, and we felt the weight of oppression and hope deferred. If if you're like me, you're probably equal parts entertained and eager to hear God's answer to Moses, big why me, why this. Well, good news, episode 2 will bring the heat, possibly quite literally with plagues, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'd like you to join me next time as we continue this epic saga. We'll see God versus Pharaoh in a clash of wills, miracles that will blow your mind, and yes, more chances for chuckles. I'll try to be funny. I think I'm funny. I make myself laugh. But remember, God's plans might simmer slowly, but they always come to boil. And trust me, the boil is coming. So thank you so much for listening to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye. If you have enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and maybe leave a comment, a review. You can catch new episodes on YouTube and Apple Podcasts only. And until next time, keep laughing, keep learning, and as always, stay curious.